Hi there, my name is Josh Griffin, and I have the privilege of helping youth workers expand their heart and skills through training, resources, and so much more through Download Youth Ministry. Now, in other training videos, I've covered valuable youth ministry skills like relational ministry, counseling students, and connecting with parents. Well, today, I want to discuss something that might not seem as important as the biggies, but it's an area that I'm passionate about and strongly believe that it can play a big part in helping students feel welcome and feel at home in your youth ministry space. It's simply this: how to improve your stage presence. Now, please hear this. No matter the size of your youth group, small or large, we need to be able to stand in front of an audience. Now, these tips are definitely going to benefit you, and they're not based on the size of your youth group, but they're based on capturing the moment so that you're giving the Lord your very best efforts. Now, I realize that when you're running a game or doing announcements or something funny on stage, it can feel like a throwaway piece of the program, like you're just killing time before we get to the real stuff, right? Like the teaching of God's Word. So I get that. But know that you're also setting the environment for students to hear God's Word, and you want to do your best to set up the room and make the kids feel like they belong, and what's coming is going to be really great. So when you're running a game, know that you're helping students feel comfortable and, most importantly, drop their guard, which is so important in a place that teenagers don't normally attend. So when you're introducing a speaker, you're helping the audience warm up to him or her, to connect with them quickly so that when they open their hearts to hear the life-changing truth of God's Word, it goes right in. So when you're doing announcements, you're not just a talking head doing a commercial. You're inviting teenagers to take the next spiritual step and find community. In short, taking the time to work on your stage presence is time well spent. So I'm glad you're still listening. Now, in my 2 decades of youth ministry, I've hosted thousands of games. I've emceed massive conferences with thousands of people, and I have made thousands of mistakes on stage too. Okay, probably not thousands, but hundreds and hundreds at least. Definitely more than my fair share. So before you take the stage, I know that there's a lot of things to process. So what I've done is I've just come up with 5 simple tips to help you plan ahead so that you can approach this important role with more confidence. Now, honestly, there's way more that could be said about this topic, and maybe we'll do a more advanced class in the future, but for now, we're going to go with 5. Here we go. Number 1, plan your first words on stage. Now, this one might not feel so revolutionary out of the gate, but I assure you this is a super common mistake that many people make, and it's totally avoidable. They waste their very first words and their first impression. So if you walk on stage and you kind of nervously say, hey, let's thank the band, hoping for applause so you can kind of gather yourself, you haven't thought enough about your first words. Those first words are an opportunity to create engagement and draw the focus of the group. They can act as a natural transition to what came before you, and they can also be a significant change in tone. Even the whole emotion of a room can change based on your moment on stage. So maybe you lead with like a bold, surprising sentence, or something pastoral or passionate out of a softer, more reflective moment in the program. Now, whatever you choose, just make sure it's a conscious decision, that you've thought through the first words that are going to come out of your mouth. If you want to see this in action, I'd encourage you to jump on YouTube or whatever and watch a TED Talk or watch an Apple product announcement, one of their keynote addresses. You'll see just how important those first few words are. Number 2, always know what's next in the program. It's really important to think through your first words. It's also really important to think through your last words too. So the part of the program that you're leading into is incredibly important. So are you transitioning to video? Is someone else coming on stage to follow you? What's the tone of the next thing? And if you misread this transition, you run the risk of botching the whole program. So imagine someone making a joke right before a video testimony about how a student overcame an addiction. So you get a good laugh, but then it's going to take 30 seconds of that video to regain the crowd's attention. So you've done that moment and your audience a disservice. So know exactly what's coming up and how you're going to hand off to the next person or the transition element that follows you. The third tip is simply this: memorize your moment. And it's not really simple. In fact, this one is loaded. And I understand you 100% might disagree with what I'm going to say, but I'm going to say it anyhow. Never take anything on stage with you. Don't take note cards or cheat sheets. Nothing is allowed with you on stage. You can't write notes on your arm like cheating at home, or you can't do it. Nothing. Now, the exception, of course, is the person who's teaching the message. They get a pass. You're allowed to use your notes, obviously, but that's it. If you're not ready to commit to the details of your moment, like commit those to memory, you're not ready to carry the moment on stage. Because being great in front of people takes work. So take the time ahead of time to memorize your lines, memorize your transitions, know the announcements, figure out the prizes, whatever else is needed to make your moment more fluid. So if you watch TV, like maybe you'll notice the host obviously using a cue card, and it totally takes away from the moment. It's a distraction to both the audience and to the presenter. Now, my biggest reason for memorizing is that if you don't, it's too easy to not prepare well. You're like, I'm just going to wing it, we'll be fine. But being great on stage takes time and effort. So do the hard work to prepare and memorize your moment. Another tip is this: always introduce yourself. Now, it's tempting to think that introducing yourself is unnecessary, right? Especially if you're a veteran leader or a regular face on stage. But if there's a chance that one person in your group might not know you, introducing yourself makes you more accessible and warmer to everyone. So if someone's new, it's an opportunity to start building a bridge with them. And in a cool way, you're also teaching your core students that you're expecting them to bring friends to youth group. And that no matter how many people in the room know you, there should be somebody here who you're hoping to meet after the program. It's actually a cool way of subtly encouraging friendship evangelism as well. So say your name. Be warm and avoid the little pro tip for you. Don't say, if you haven't met me, because it sounds like you're a big deal. And just change that a little bit to say, if I haven't met you, and make them the big deal. The last tip, tip number 5, is watch your back. So when you're on stage, be aware of your body. Body language screams confidence or the lack thereof. I would say it's a good practice to walk the stage beforehand so you know the steps, the edges, the possible spots that may give you trouble. Like, I don't know if you've ever watched a concert, like on YouTube, so funny when someone falls off the edge. It's hilarious. I love it. Don't let it happen to you. So maybe you've got some stage decorations, or the guitar cables from the music are right in front of you. Just get the lay of the land before your big moment. You know, it's a good idea to know, like if you're running a game, know where you're going to stand and where the contestant is going to be. Know where the game supplies are. Where have you put your prizes? Like, I know we've already talked about the importance of thinking through your moment, but walking through it ahead of time helps you figure out the different movements that it's going to require, and it'll help you avoid all of the crazy gymnastics that are going to happen on the fly. So be ready for those moments because you've given it some thought and you've walked through it. Here's a couple of simple mistakes that rookies make when it comes to body language. First, just make sure that your back is never to the crowd. And try to avoid bending down for any reason, even if you're going to pick up a prize or something. You don't want to give someone a great look at your rear or down the front of your shirt. Like, put your prizes on a stool or a music stand to help the movement of the game feel natural. The bottom line is this: be aware of where your audience is and where you are. And this tip alone is going to help strengthen your stage presence. All right. I realize 5 ways to improve your stage presence is a lot to take in, but I hope these tips and tricks will help you plan for and execute your onstage moments to perfection or close enough in the future. And here's one additional free tip. When you see someone who's like they just had a great message or a great talk or the game was unbelievable, ask him or her for a simple tip or trick to help you develop your stage skills even further. I've done this so many times, and I'm just constantly picking up little tips and tricks and ideas and hacks so that I get better on stage. Well, hey, thanks for taking the time to watch this training. I do hope that it creates some discussion and spurs on some great ideas to help you take the stage with more intentionality, confidence, and excitement than ever before. We'll see you next time.